Alright, you guys, good morning here. We are going to be starting with our lesson 1.1. This is actually our first lesson of the first chapter, and we're going to be talking about shifting absolute value graphs. We do have our objective and our vocab here, so let's go ahead and jump up to our definitions here. So starting off, guys, we do have absolute value. Absolute value in this case is written as the absolute value of x. And these two lines in this case represent the absolute value. So if you see something like this here, something like this represents absolute value. And in this case, guys, the x represents any number. X in this case is any number. Any number, positive, negative, decimal fraction, any number. And in this case, whenever we're talking about absolute value does represent the distance between x and 0. Once again, x is any number, so we're talking about distance here from any number to 0. One thing to note, guys, whenever we are talking about distance will always be positive. So it doesn't matter if your number is positive or negative, your absolute value of that number will also result in a positive answer. So let's go ahead and take a look at this here, what we have in purple. And in this case, guys, I want to go ahead and find the distance between the numbers we have here and 0. So if I start off from -12 and I go all the way to 0, the distance between -12 and 0, or 0 and -12, is a positive 12. Once again, whenever we're talking about distance here, guys, distance is positive. Same thing if I were to count from 0 to 12 or 12 to 0, the distance from there will also be 12. So if I'm trying to find the absolute value of a -12, absolute value of -12 in this case will equal a positive 12. Because once again, we are calculating the distance from that number to 0. Same thing if I take the absolute value of a positive 12, absolute value here would be 12. All right, and I could choose any other numbers. I could say, let's say -37. Distance from -37 to 0 is 37 units. Therefore, absolute value of it is 37. So once again, guys, whenever we're talking about absolute value, we're talking about the distance of a certain number to 0. So let's go ahead and move on to our graph here. And I want to go ahead and graph this equation here. One thing, guys, this equation is actually known as a parent function. So however this equation comes out, the graph, that's how all of them are going to look like. So I will be starting off with creating a table. So I want to go ahead and create a table here. Create a table for us. And we have x and we have y. So we have 0 here. And in this case, I'm looking for numbers that come before a 0. And we all have negative numbers in this case. So I'll go ahead and use -2, -4, and -6. And in this case, I will be using its opposites. So I will have 2, 4, and 6. So the goal in this case is to find our y value. And in order to do that, we do have to substitute these x's we just found, or we just had, into our equation. So we have y equals absolute value of a -6. The distance from -6 to 0 is a positive 6. Let's go ahead and repeat that with the -4. Absolute value of -4 is a positive 4. And we're going to go ahead and do this for all the values here. And then we're going to go ahead and graph. And once again, guys, it doesn't matter if the value input in the absolute value is positive or negative. Your result will always be positive. Result will always be positive here. So the value of 6 is going to be a 6. So we have our x values and we have our y values in this case, guys, y values. So I'm going to go ahead and graph this. I'm going to go ahead and create a graph here. And my graph in this case is going to only focus on the top side because that's where my graph is actually going to be located. So this is x. This is x and this is y. So let's go ahead and graph this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. So let's label this 2, 4, and 6, -2, -4, and -6. All right, so I want to go ahead and start plotting my points in this case, guys. I'm going to go ahead and start off with -6 and 6. So we have our first point right here. Second point in this case is -4, 4. And we have our point there. Next one is -2, 2. Then 0, 0. Then it goes back to a 2, 2. 4, 4, and 6, 6. So now let's go ahead and connect these lines here, guys. Let's go ahead and connect them. Let's go ahead and connect this. And in this case, guys, all absolute value graphs are going to be in this shape. They all have a V shape. So all absolute value graphs are in a V shape. And once again, this is known as a parent function because all of the absolute value graphs will be looking like this. You'll have some that are flipped, some that are wider or narrower, but this is our graph here.